Thank you, TEDx team, for the warm welcoming me. What do you think of when you look at this picture? Perhaps some of your thoughts may be this picture is representation of innocence, hope, future, potential. But what happened when there is a group of children who are robbed of this innocence, hope, future, and potential? Today, I will be sharing with you about this particular group of children, forgotten generation of refugee children in Limbo. Refugee is a person who has forced to leave their country in order to escape war, persecution, natural disaster. According to UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee, one person is forcefully displaced as the result of conflict and persecution. We have more displaced people today than ever in history since World War II, with over 70 million people displaced and nearly 26 million seeking refuge. This making the biggest humanitarian crisis that we currently face. With that in mind, how many refugee children and youths are then out there in the world today? 7.1 million refugee children and youth. That's over 7 million souls globally, having lived less than 18 years of their life experiencing the horror of the reality of this world. Is the injustice world that currently we are having. Then we look into the Malaysia concept, where we have 46,000 children registered with UNHCR. We can also estimate the double that number. Today I will be sharing 4 of the most common challenges faced by the refugee children in Malaysia. There has been significantly lack of focus on mental health for refugee children and youth. Generally, you would see a longer list of mental health challenges when it comes to refugees compared to the local people. Imagine if you are facing persecution, discrimination, furthermore witnessing the death of the loved one or the destruction of your homes. The millions of people, millions of children are currently experiencing and continue living in that trauma, all wide world. According to a study research, it suggested trauma can be inherited, which means the trauma that refugee children is having will continue to second and third generation. We can't imagine our next generation to have this kind of challenges to fight with themselves on mental health issue. Physical health is another huge challenge faced by the most refugees around the world, and this rings especially true in Malaysia. As a non-signatory to UN Refugee Convention, Malaysia till today did not recognize refugee and asylum seeker, which means this group of individuals are deemed as undocumented migrants. Also, putting the refugees where they can't access their basic human rights. Without a right to work, they can't provide balanced and nutritional food for their children. Refugee children face higher risk of security that make the children confined to their homes most of their free time. According to one of the group, UITM, they suggested the children are out of school, it's more than 70%, which means the children has nowhere to go. They just sit at home, they have nothing on their mind, they just go through their daily struggles, thinking about whether the experience they have go through or what next. That's lead me to safety and security. I agree, or I believe most of the people in the room might agree with my thought that a child should at very least have the fundamental right of safety and security. A children who experience trauma and violence, furthermore terrorized, furthermore put in trauma by throwing them into detention camps. As reported, in 2019 July, there were 363 children below age of 12 years old are detained in immigration detention center in Malaysia. You have known that children are going through so much in their daily struggles. It's not only on their mental health issue, they also face physical issues. All this harrowing experience grim a more portrait picture saying, are this what I'm going to bring forward? Putting the children, criminalizing them by putting them in immigration detention center, even after signing a UN Child Right Convention, which required to protect each individual below age of 18 as a child. But the refugee children are not being recognized, so that they are further more put into the trauma. Many of us believe education is the best tool to empower and create a progression and push forward for a better collective future. More than half of the population are not enrolled in school. Malaysian government did not allow the refugees children to attend the schools at the local academic education system, which means the children can do so only through the learning centers. These learning centers are run by refugee-led organizations or non-governmental organizations, and some of the refugee-led organization learning center are not funded, which means they have challenges in continuing the learning center to keep running. It's also resort to hiring untrained teacher in their schools and using variety of syllabi they have access to. They don't have access to accredited syllabi, which means they cannot sit for exam and get certificate, which can be used to enroll themselves in schools, universities, and colleges in futures. Financial capacity also often put the learning center in downsizing their learning center despite of huge community needs. We have been talking about the 4 challenges. I would like to share with you one incident that happened last year in December by a refugee mother who cried on the other side, asking me to help her because she's being investigated together with her family by police. Her 3-year-old son died due to fever. The police was investigating her. Why did not you take the child to the nearest clinic or hospital for treatment? But the reality is that the parents can't afford to pay the medical fee. Despite of having UNHCR card, refugee can get access in medical hospital, government medical hospital, with 50% of the fees waived. But still, the costs are still unaffordable by the refugee communities. They don't have right to work. They are not recognized. They don't have money to save the child. So where this thing is leading actually? I'm sure for many of you, this is a hard pill to swallow. But this is just a tip of the iceberg. So what can we do about it? What can you do about it in your own capacity to help address the biggest humanitarian crisis that we're currently facing, the tragedies of the world? First of all, we need to recognize that this is a problem. As long as we stay silent, the issue will continue to raise. To illustrate my point, I would like to quote one of the most prominent intellectuals in history, who also happened to be a refugee sometime in his life. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. Albert Einstein. That's lead me to the step 2. Talk about it. Many Malaysian and people around the world don't know about the actual issues and challenges faced by the refugees themselves. Many of them are who oppose or against the refugee to get supported, to integrate into the society. As long as this negative opinion or suggest or ideas float in public space and social media platform, the people in power, the politician will empower to do, protect and support the refugee will be very limited, because they see negative more than positive. That's lead me to step 3. Speak out and show your support online and offline. There are many resources for reading from UNHCR website, from organizations who are working and supporting refugees in ground level to policymakers. They are advocating for refugee rights. So we need your support in order to speak up on this issue, to help the policymakers to see these are the issues my local people care about. So I should do something. Use your civic voice. In this room, everyone have privilege, including me. Maybe my privilege is a bit lower than yours because I'm being undocumented refugee who are not recognized, and you are Malaysian. Use your civic voice to help us be our voice. Speak right into your MPs, to head of your governments, to call on for their humanitarian obligation toward each and every individual who are living in their country. Since Malaysia is a member of UN state, which means you have signed to promise, I will protect people in the country. But because I'm being a refugee, that put my privilege a bit lower than you. But I'm still have a lot of privilege compared to my other community children. Lastly, if you have any capacity, any capacity, do support the work that organizations are doing on the grassroots level, such as Tenaganita. We are doing advocacy, we are doing fundraising, but again, we are not funded. If any chance, if you could support by donating to us, it will be great. Or any other organization who are working to advocate, assisting and supporting the refugee community to continue living in this world. Refugees are not charity cases. Why am I saying that refugees are not charity cases? Because whenever given a chance to contribute back to the host country, we won't hesitate to do so. There are many in history which have proven resilience and resourcefulness who contribute back to the world despite of being a refugee. From Albert Einstein to the 14th Dalai Lama. And today, in today's generation, we have another prominent name, a young youth who speak out and advocate regardless of the threats and the violence she faced. Malala Yousafzai. I'm sure many of you have seen her books. She's still advocating for education right, even after being shot on her face by Taliban. In Malaysia too, we have many inspiring refugees youth who are ready to contribute whenever they can or whenever there is a need. Hassan al-Akra, a Syrian refugee who co-founded Al-Hassan Volunteer Network, an organization to empower the youth and volunteer to spread kindness through the social project. For example, painting an orphanage, fundraising for children for heart surgery. Other example will be Project Stand Up. This is a group of young refugee leaders from Somali community addressing issues faced by the community. Some of the issues that they face, for example, is the low participation of girls in schools. And they did such a wonderful job where they were awarded for a Filmfare Award in 2017 for their short movie. And they also organized leadership program for the refugee young leader in order to tackle the real world problem. This is just 3 examples from many inspiring young refugees who are currently in Malaysia. As one of them, I'm standing in front of you. I'm a second generation Rohingya refugee as introduced by the MCs today. But I keep talking about privilege because I feel very blessed. I'm very blessed. I was given opportunity to study in government school. And with that experience, I'm able to represent human rights organization, Tenaganita, and also the refugee community in Malaysia today. Growing up as a refugee, I faced a lot of challenges. All the 4 challenges, the common challenges that I shared earlier, I already went through that route. As a girl, I faced LGBT, sexual and gender-based violence. My memories of childhood being teased and discriminated, isolated by my friends, my teachers, by calling me Budak Burma, not by my name. And just to put something to think of, I'm sure many of you have visited the beautiful Petronas Twin Tower. Any of you? Can I see hands? Those who have visited, I assume majority of you. My father was one of the workers who have labored in building the beautiful Petronas Twin Tower, but yet we are not recognized for our contribution to this country. During my father work there, he was arrested for being undocumented. and detained in immigration center for 6 months. After 6 months, maybe you are guessing he came back to us. No. He was sold to a fisherman in Thailand. He labored at the boat for another 6 months. Or I should say slave. Without any medical attention, he falls sick. Because he falls sick, he couldn't continue work. The fisherman decided to throw him out from the boat. So he was thrown out from the boat. And luckily, there was another fisherman boat who saved him. During his absence, my mother, she struggled a lot in order to protect and support her children. She had to work as a domestic worker in 3 different homes in a day, and at night she will work at bakery. So I have little time with her growing up. Because we don't have financial security, I often stay home and face harassment by the housemate since we cannot rent the whole house. Because of my parents' sacrifice, I was able to excel myself in school. But again, I faced discrimination, isolated, nearly molested in the school. No action taken toward the teacher who tried to do so. But I was able to empower myself, I could say, with the strength and support by my local friends, few local teachers who supported me. I represent my school and the state of Selangor in different sport competition. I just wanted to share that when given opportunity, I too wanted to give back to the host country. And I could do so as such today, volunteering at Tenaganita as a volunteer community worker. I help those community in needs. We don't seek charity. We are just requesting for our basic human rights. I hope this story inspired you and spare some thoughts for the community to commit to keep supporting us and share your, perhaps by the 5 ways that I shared earlier with you. Treating refugee as the problem is the problem itself. As long as you try to move forward toward more significant effort to support and help the community, we could create a better world for our future, especially for the future, for the generation, in forgotten generation. And this quote from my mom, the most inspiring woman in my life. Before I end it, I would like to share that humanity has no race and religion. It is the love and belief to keep us together for each other. Sakina Abdul Razak, thank you very much for your time.